when this whole COVID-19 thing started happening, we thought, well, this is a great solution if you've got a lot of money to spend and a lot of time to build it and do the planning to, say, reload all your Windows machines to be Linux desktops. But there was nothing sort of that was filling any of the requirements that our customers were asking us for. So, for example, we've got a customer that 20 or 30 users. In fact, this is actually their management system, and they've got Linux desktops on which they run an RDP client to talk to their cloud-based Windows RDP servers. And now suddenly they couldn't go to their offices. So the standard way that I know a lot of other service companies are doing is saying, well, just buy a laptop and build your RDP, put your RDP client on it and connect to your Windows server and everything's fine. Except you have a lot of companies they've engineered their remote access solution to the tune of, say, 10% of their workforce requiring it. Because the sales staff and the management staff and certain members of staff would always be running remotely, whereas your back office staff would never be working remotely. So working in that scenario, you end up with a whole bunch of problems, some of them being machine related, so hardware related. Are there enough cores in the CPUs that are running your Windows or your Linux systems? Is there enough memory to manage this incredible upswinging in the number of users that want to connect to your servers? Is there enough, even if there's enough bandwidth, or if you've got enough licenses from Microsoft to manage the massive increase? But also, how many people have you got on hand to manage that kind of explosive growth in connectivity, and to talk through the process of installing the software onto someone's desktop or a laptop at their home in order to have them connect back to the main systems? Of course, then that introduces another problem, which is staff bandwidth. And staff bandwidth of, well, you've got a whole bunch of people that need this access, but your limited IT staff can't deal with that, and there's not enough people to service all your sudden newfound requirements for your staff. Or even stranger is the realization that your staff, some of them don't have computers at home. Some of them, the only place they touch a computer is at work, because their experience of computing is via a handheld device, their mobile phone or a tablet if they're lucky. Most people, there's a whole new generation of people that their only experience of computing is via a handheld device. So going back to what our clients were wanting, we had a couple of traditional clients, and we had them already running their workloads in a cloud environment. They didn't necessarily have connectivity from home, so the call was on to get everyone connected remotely. That was going to end up being across a number of customers, 100 hours, 200 hours of work just to get everyone connected properly. And that was going to be a bit of an issue. And I thought there's got to be some sort of some sort of open source way of doing it. And that's where I was doing some research for remote access for another customer. And they are using, they're using Leap and they do fluid dynamics calculations and software. They write their own software, and some of their customers are in aerospace, Formula One, you name it, and they're heavy duty users, and they wanted a high performance solution, and we came across a number of them. But this is the one that really struck, really leapt out at me, which is called Apache Guacamole. Has anyone heard of this? Is this familiar with this? Familiar with this package? You can unmute if you want to unmute and tell me. It's essentially a proxy server that you can connect to your Windows systems, to your Linux systems, your RDP systems, and your VNC and SSH systems, and even Telnet. And then suddenly you can access stuff, your work from anywhere, because it's all web-based. It's a simple login. Looks like that. And once you're logged in, this is a live version. This is what it looks like. And these are the most recently connected systems. And let's go to a customer's RDP server. And if I could remember their username and password, or the administrator password, I could probably get you in quite quickly. And I'm not sure what the performance is like for everyone there. That's about half their user estate, or 3/4 of their user estate running right now. And we just want to go use the browser key, the back key. It takes you back, and you can go and look at, say, I don't know, a system monitor, this is actually the Guacamole server that is running the remote access for those users and for what we've just logged into. So it's actually not doing anything. You look around here and there's almost no utilization, and you've got a 6 or 7 people working. We've never seen it go above 15%, even with 100 people connected to it. So it's very, very low touch in terms of CPU usage. I mentioned this in this conference because when I tried to look for these packages inside the software at SUSE, openSUSE.org, I couldn't find them. There was one, someone had built them, but they didn't work properly, and none of the integrations were working. So I had to build it by hand. So I'm not that good with building RPMs or C files. But once I did do that, it works a treat. You'd spend, say, probably 15 minutes putting together the Apache configuration. So you can see here at the top of the screen. If you could all go to that, and you'll see that that's the URL. It's super simple. No plugins were required on any client machine that you connect. It works on mobile phones. It works on iPads, Macs, Android devices, Linux, you name it. It all runs everything everywhere. It's quite an amazing thing. So part of this session really is a call out. It's like, we get this built and included in Leap and actually into openSUSE, because into the SUSE SLAES packages, because it is an awesome piece of software that SUSE and openSUSE should be leading the way in terms of COVID in recommending this. The other thing that it comes with, which I can't really show you, but it comes with a whole bunch of different means of authentication, including something called Duo. And Duo is has recently been bought by Cisco. It's a two-factor authentication provider, and it's one of the things that this comes out of the box with natively. So it's completely secure and extremely high quality open source code that is solving some of my customers' problems right now. And that's kind of really all I wanted to raise and to discuss. If anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask. I did have more to present, but it's been a long day, and I've been busy trying to make the whole conferencing system work.
Which we appreciate.
It's been interesting. Yeah. Any questions? That's a very old SLES system. I'm not sure who installed that, but it wasn't me. I believe this a lot of this work was done with I think a lot of this is built into things like OpenStack. A lot of the code's been built into OpenStack and projects like that for management of remote systems.
Those packages that you said you found on software.opensuse.org, but they were just built, homebrew builds, and
yeah, and I think I haven't checked for a while, but I've installed. I've asked a question. I don't think anyone's responded. So I just downloaded the source builds and built it by hand. I'm not so much of a C and RPM development fanatic that means that I can know how to build an RPM and compile it properly and have it supportable. But I know that there was a big push by SUSE to come up with something, and I'm not sure if they came up with anything that was really that interesting. I think it was just a SLED plus something, and a lot of the other solutions that people have come up with require integration and actually hard sweat, blood, and tears to try and get something working that will work for the customer. But this is by far the easiest thing to do. I was literally up and running with this within 2 hours, and able to provide people with a URL to point to connect and start working remotely.
Maybe one question. Yeah, cool. So when I was setting up, I guess ref, since we are talking about it Red Hat virtualization, since we are talking about it in the chat, one of the changes was actually to set up the entire Active Directory and basically the infrastructure so I can get this easily working. Otherwise, just installing and deploying ref was not that difficult once you had the infra set up. Is there some complex infra setup needed by Guacamole, or does it just work out of the box with some simplified login mechanism?
So there's a number of. It's a good question actually. There are a number of good of ways you can go about it. The easiest way is, which is the way we've done it, is to have a simple log on per. So for example, this is one user, and this one user, if you know the username and password, will get you into all these servers. But you still need to get onto those servers in the first place. So it's not necessarily that secure, but you're in the way we've architected it in our cloud is you end up in basically a waiting room waiting to give access to, for example, that Windows system. Now I had to log on to that. So if you can get onto that, you can build it that way, which is the easiest way. That's a static means of authentication. There's the Duo solution, which is two-factor authentication. So you have to have a key or an app on your mobile phone that logs you in. I think the integration, two ways to authenticate with Active Directory. One is you have to install an Active Directory schema, so that Guacamole will have its own little bit of schema in Active Directory, which a lot of Active Directory administrators would never like, and they would never allow it. Or alternatively, there is a solution where we build a Postgres database with a level of I guess an application on that. I haven't gone that far. I've gone this far, and that's been good enough for my customers.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, the documentation is really good, and there's lots of it. Lots of good scenarios and what ifs on this site. And it tells you everything, and it's Apache. What can be wrong with that? So they talk now about there's LDAP there, there's Duo. So there's lots of different means of authentication. So you should be okay with that. Now, if anyone wants any assistance to deploy it, I'm very very much available to help if people want to take a look at using this. Provided, of course, someone helps me build it properly on the openSUSE build system. Any other questions?
Well, I think that's probably about it.
I'll put everyone to sleep.
It's a long day, and you see some people from different places where I mean, since some could be
you didn't put me to sleep. Don't worry.
That's the kind of feedback I need. I mean, I've got lots and lots of people bitching about the conferencing software, but actually, it's what's good is that there are more people bitching about the unmuted microphones than there are about the product. But actually, the unmuted microphones is my fault. So there you go. That was meant to work properly. No, that's it's been a long day actually.
But I think simply doing it on the system too is also quite good as well. I mean, open mics is always an issue with a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Just
but
ask
it's
your
good.
local politician.
Exactly. And some that don't even care anymore.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, then next up on the schedule, looks like we have Neil. He's going to be doing a talk about, I guess, how they're using OBS at Datto. Again, the various sponsors we have. So,
Yeah.
also iLayer is a sponsor. So, very much appreciative of all the people that have taken part in this. So I guess we could probably exit and then go into Neil's talk.
Yeah. Exit stage left, everyone. Thank you for listening in, and see you on the next conference, next session.